Good evening. Well, it's just about still Saturday. I do need to apologise. Hey, Mika Ketsme. I swear I started that horror movie at about 9:30. And it was only supposed to be 2 hours long, so I thought, I suppose it kind of worked out, really. Somehow, in my head, I thought there'd be... I'm sure it was just before 9:30. But in my brain, I thought I had more time than that. You know how it goes. And then there was a bit where you kind of go, I'm sorry, what? And you rewind a bit, and, well, that makes it longer. And it's a movie that part of me swears I've seen before. I think I've seen the beginning, but I don't think I saw the whole movie. And maybe it was one I kind of went, oh, this looks shit, and moved on. And this time around, I was in the mood for it. It was called The Terrifier. And basically, it's a psycho clown that goes around killing people. It's a horror movie, right? But it's the typical low-budget kind of horror movie. And only just a couple up of rungs from school play level. But at the same time, I do like a good crap film, and I do like a good crap horror movie, so I decided I'd watch it. Not sure it was the best use of my life, but, decided to do it anyway. So how are you, Mika Ketsme? That's a good thing. So, let's poke that. Today, today I tried out the new thread that I bought. Now, it looks harmless enough, it looks reasonable enough, and, well, like that, yeah, it does. I'm not going to disagree with you. If I grab, I know they're a little bit entangled, but let's tweak that up because the blue doesn't show on the blue because it happens to be the same blue. So, somewhere I've got another one. There it is. There it is. So over here I have this one. That'll be a better. Ditch those. Put those down. So they look pretty similar. I mean, this one looks a bit wonky, but it looks a little bit at the edge. It looks like it had a bad day. Now, what you can't tell is one of the things that, if you remember this, which I haven't given up on, by the way. If you remember this feels, oops, men's. There, we don't need those. This is quite malleable. It's very, very floppy. And I quite like it for that. Because, well, if it was going to be a shawl or you want it to kind of mould to your body, this is quite stiff. Now, it's a bit more malleable in places, but if I hold a corner, it kind of stays where it is, right? So if I hold this corner, it doesn't flop. Whereas, almost irrelevant of where I hold this, if I hold it about similar distance, this instantly flops, right? And, well, this is very much the same in that it doesn't exactly flop. Rory, what is wrong with you animals? Last few days, you've been really fucking annoying. Might I try and do anything? If I'm sitting here watching telly, you ignore me. Might I do anything? You have to be in my face and in my lap and mauling me and licking me and jumping on me and biting at me. And what is wrong? Now, if coming from Rory, I would say that he's telling me I'm not well, because he is a bit of a little nurse. But she's been a bitch too. Lie down. Come on. Lie me down. Lie you big butt down, dog. That's it, lie down. No, you were doing the right thing. Why is it the moment you tell a dog that it's good, it stops doing the good thing and does an annoying thing instead? Come on, lie down. I'm trying not to be mad at you, but I am seething right now. Can you just sit down and lie down or something? Please. I said sit down. Jesus Christ. Hello. So, the problem this comes from, fuck off dog then. Right, this comes from, this one is cotton and comes from this stuff. And well, this stuff is solid, but floppy. This one, I thought I'd put it in that box. Yeah, there it is. Comes from this stuff. Now, like this, it looks fairly harmless. It looks just as good as the others. Well, the beige one, not so much. The beige one is a little bit more solid. As you can see, it's not exactly drooping. It kind of, and if you tie a knot in it, just tying a small knot and do a bit of a knot, it starts coming undone. So if I pull it tighter, look, you can see it's tight. When I let go, it's not tight anymore. So it doesn't tend to stay where you put it. Now, being a bit of a cack-handed twat, to be honest, don't half make tatting a little bit, well, complicated. Because there you are. We say knots and the nauticurt appears. Well, you got to remember that tatting in as an effect is a bunch of half hitches. No, and when you're trying to get the tension right, so you snug them all down and you go to do the next thing and it goes, right? Now, let me zoom in a bit, right? But there is one advantage to it. If you look at these, bear in mind, same size thread, right? Now, I know the white gets a little blown out on my camera because, well, it does, right? But you can very clearly see each individual stitch. I mean, the red, because it's darker, you can see it, but you have to look harder. So if you look at the beige portion, you can see every individual stitch. And that is kind of what you're supposed to get. Now, you can sort of with these, but you'll notice they bunch up together better. And on the blue, they, you know, the blue stands out a bit. But it kind of, the reason I bought this stuff, and I did buy the exact stuff, so there's a channel who, on YouTube, who do a number of tatting videos, and they are designed to help people like me accomplish new things, such as working in two colours, right? I actually think this was one of their patterns. Don't hold me to it, but I think it was one of the patterns. But they show how to do beads, they show how to hide the ends, which I know this looks munged. That was actually me trying to get rid of the two ends you have at the end, not the beginning. At the beginning, it looks kind of tidy. So, for example, if I grab these, I know, problem is it's like a fucking snake. But there you go, if I hold it that way up, oh, it's under the fucking words. It's quite tidy, right? So at the start, it's really quite promising. But if you try, oh, it also doesn't help that this tatting thing, so that it clicks one end, doesn't click the other, so you can't, anyway, it doesn't stay that end, which is quite annoying. But when you try and wrap it around your fingers, so for the next bit I need to wrap this, say, around my finger, do this and it's popped undone and it's not holding tension. So then you end up kind of wrapping it around 900 times, and this then likes getting tangled up with it. Will you just sit still, animal? For Christ's sake. There's enough couch for everybody. Go and sit on the chair. I'm not in a tolerant mood with the dogs today. They have been, as I said, they've been really quite annoying, and it's not that I don't love them. I do. But while watching film, totally left me alone. Didn't sit near me, didn't do anything. They were asleep somewhere else. The moment I go to do anything, I can literally pick this up and there'll be a dog trying to be in my face. Yeah. And it's not that you don't love them, but right here, right now, you know, a taser would be freaking nice. I just want some peace. Anyway, let me zoom out a bit. But because you wind it around your finger, so this has to go around your finger. I've wound it 3 times around my finger, and by the time you sorted out this end, this is loose, and this just, so it's not holding tension. So then you end up wrapping around, you know, 100 times. This one isn't working properly because it's not got the splits too wide, and I've probably got to heat it up to turn it around. But then you're trying to hold this tiny ass piece of shit because, you know, the beginning is always the most complicated for these things. And you're doing the things, so you need to go in there and out there, and yeah. So you pull it tight. You have to hold it, otherwise it moves. So then you're kind of trying to pull this down here, but you want some tension on it, but not too much tension. Yeah, see, that's, I mean, I would say you don't get that with dogs, but Rory and his like 50-inch talons kind of is, because when he kind of does the paw, it's not paw, it's like having a fight with Wolverine. And I mean, I've shown these a few times. You can see the scars. That was me when I found that there was a bit of mud on Rory's claw, and I went pick. He didn't like it. That was the result. So he has plenty of, and of course, being dog claws, I mean, don't get me wrong, cat claws are basically scalpel blades. But as a whole, they're smaller, cleaner cuts. This is more gouging with a spoon. Wretched animal. So I do love him, but they don't half know how to try your patience. So I've been trying, but I'm finding it really hard because if... Yeah, I can imagine that. But you see, if I look at this, it's unflipped. So this is now straight and this is not. It's unflipped itself. So if you're not careful, you end up with knots that don't move. Then you have to unpick the bugger because you've got to go back because you've done a bunch since then. So, you know, maybe you stop to scratch your head or rub your eye or sip your drink or whatever you were doing. You continue on because you've not changed. You know, pretty much you held it in this hand and went slurpy, slurpy, put your drink down. Went, continued on, but now the knot doesn't move because it's flipped. And it just... boiling my piss. And so it's been... I mean, I kind of like how it looks. I definitely like the colours. It comes in a lot of colours. I will give it that. But I just can't decide whether it's worth it. Because you see, with this, other than the bits where I kind of messed up. So if I zoom in a bit, hang on. Actually, zoom back in. Other than some of the bits, like this was the join. But if you look here, you can see the blue through the white, so I didn't quite pull it tight enough. There's a bit where I had to rejoin some threads, so it looks a bit scrappy. There's occasional bits where the blue shows through. But that show looks like pure white with a blue middle. With this, everywhere you can see the red through the beige. And one of the things that I have noticed is that in their video, when they make something and they pull on the yarn to tighten it up a bit, they don't tighten it up a bit. They tighten it like they're pulling a frigging freight train through it. And you literally hear as it pulls the thread through the work. Yet at the end, when they want to sew the ends in, it just glides through. Whereas I have to use I have to pull the needle with a pair of fucking pliers. And mine's looser. So I don't know how that works. I am kind of liking this. I quite like the idea of this. I like a lot of the patterns you can get. And I quite like the fact that, you know, a small bag of not a lot, you could take your tatting shuttles. I think the only thing that does annoy me is that you can't easily, for example, that's a bad one because it's been pissy, but join A to B. I know it's wonky, it's because that cable's joined those two together, right? I know it's still wonky, but I can't just add that on the end. I can't make one and add it on the end particularly easy. And I think that's slightly annoying because it means that should you be making a bigger object, you do actually have to take the whole bigger object with you. But if you wanted to make, say, this, which, let's face it, you know, screws up into not a lot, right? You could easily put that, you know, almost in... Hang on, let's take its contents out. You know, you can almost have a little bag like this that you put this and a couple of tatting shuttles in, because if you work from 2 shuttles, that's all you need to take with you. So, you know, if I put that and, you know, if I put this and that in a bag, that would be, you can put that in your pocket. So if you're going somewhere, you know, sit in the doctor's waiting area, you know, all of those usual kind of, if you're 1 second late, we'll fine you. But if we're 90 minutes, screw you. Oh, cheers, yeah. Which is how the British doctors work, by the way. If you are literally a second over the time, you have to report to the receptionist, and they will have a go at you for not being 5 minutes early. But 90 minutes later, when you're still sitting in the waiting room, kind of nodding off, wondering, you know, you've analysed which germs you're going to be taking home with you, because, of course, you're sitting in a room full of people going, you know, or whatever, right? And, you know, there's some guy who's been to the toilet 16 times, and you're not going in there no matter how bad you need it, and all of that kind of stuff, right? And you're sitting there going, no. And you're only there for, I don't know, a blood pressure check. There's nothing actually wrong with you. You're just, you know, they've demanded a blood pressure check. And you're sitting there going, you know, thanks for making me come in and catch all these germs. You know, norovirus is doing the rounds, and, you know, half these buggers are probably here because of that. And, you know, and you're making me come in. And, well, yeah. So, with that in mind, you know, I try and avoid going to the doctors for that very reason. But, you know, it is the kind of place that you want something to do. And this is something. And it is quite easy. You know, it wouldn't be very easy to take this with me after all. I mean, obviously, with all the sticks and everything, I can, you know, technically you can travel and take some with you and all of that. But it's not ideal. So I'm just moving the box. Dear God, animal. So yeah, so I do find myself slightly not in the mood today, mainly because the dogs have been annoying all day. But we're going to do some, and we're going to do our best, because for every little bit that counts and all that kind of shit. So, oh look, it's midnight. It's now Sunday, so hence it was a bit cheeky, having Saturday's dream, but it is technically Saturday. So when I started, so let's kick into where we should be. Oh look, tons of dog hair. Let's reduce some of the dog hair. Oh look, bobbins come off. So yes, I am trying very hard to be patient today, but I fear I am fighting a battle for which I already have lost. I just don't know it yet. So how is everybody? How are the kitties? How's Naughty Cult? How's everybody else who's lurking and hasn't said hello yet? How's your day been so far? For those of you who have days to go, for Naughty Cult and I, we've now got 23 hours and 58 minutes of a day to go. So because it's technically Sunday. That can be a good thing. That can be a good thing. Most of us, animal or human, always feel better when we're at home. Even if it's not necessarily better for us. Ooh. My music teacher used to have cats. She was crap at giving them meds. No, poor little paws. How are the paws? What did they find? Well, what did they find with the paws? That's good. That's good that they're doing better. Did they work out why his paws were so bad? Because I know. I bet he loves that. Cats and sprays do not generally mix, let's truly be honest. I mean, dogs aren't much better, but... Yes, because last time we spoke, we was going to the vets. Oh, poor little soldier. I must admit, I do wish we could talk better to animals and explain sometimes that we're not doing it because we want to make them unhappy, that we're doing it because we want to make them better, and that we appreciate that it hurts, makes them feel sick, whatever, but this will make them better. A bit like Mr. Paws and his claws here. If I could say to him, look, I know you hate it, But if you would sit still and let me do it, I will hug you for the hour afterwards. Exactly. Please do not retaliate, because if you sit still, it will take like a minute, not half an hour, and we both won't hate each other at the end of it, and we can sit and have a big hug. And I promise then not to do it for a while until, medication's a bit harder, but, like the clause, I promise not to have to do this for at least another month or two, and I promise to hug you for an hour afterwards and feed you treats and, treat you like a king. But I do need you to do this. I honestly do, because I do think that if you could explain to them sometimes that by not letting them trim their claws or not, that it hurts you. It actually, I think I said on Friday about how when Charlie was ill and I had to give him some medication, he got to the point of he didn't really want it anymore. And he wasn't aggressive, but he was very determined that he was not having it. And it made me cry because he needed it to live. And it was kind of like, he didn't understand. I mean, I always swore that Charlie, if he had known, for example, take Valentine's Day. I think if Charlie had known that little card in the post would have made my day, he'd have done it. He wouldn't have understood it, but he didn't care that he didn't understood it. He would have, he wanted to make me happy. And, for him to have to say no, knowing that it upset me, because, I'm sitting on the kitchen floor crying, he knew it upset me, but he still couldn't manage to let me do it. He'd had enough. And I can understand that feeling. I had chemo, for Christ's sake. I understand that feeling very well. But it was just one of those things is that you're left sitting there going, I so need you to do this. And I know it's horrible. And I don't want to have to do it. But for you and me to keep together, we've got to do this. And it's like I wish I could understand my little man's PTSD. Because from what I can tell, he never had anything horrible happen to him. But clearly something did. And I'm not saying his life was all sunshines and rainbows. Because, they lost their mother very early on. And they were found as tiny, tiny beans. And I mean tiny little beans. They were... Hang on. I've got a picture. Collections. Don't suppose... If I scroll back now... I'm going to include that in there. Let's search for dog. Okay, let's see if I can find. Depends which bloody order these pictures are in. There's Charlie. Fiona. Why is the picture I'm looking for not in here? It's not even picked up its picture of a dog, for Christ's sake. Okay, so I need to go to select sort by date filter. You're going to let me filter by note. Select, you're not... Why can't I view... Why can't I select a frigging date range? Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. If you could kind of... If there was that option to explain to them that you're not doing it because you're a bitch. You're doing it because... it is in their best interest, and irrelevant of how horrid it is for the pair of you, that, it is a necessary evil. it would be a lot easier on all of us. Yep. I've got them by then, so it's before then. It's early on. That's when he was littles. So that's before then. This was very littles. They weren't that little when I got them, of course, because they were they were 3 months old. Okay. Now I found it. Oh, of course the bloody ads kick in. Fuck off, ads. Can't cancel ads, can I? No. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Bastard. I swear those adverts know when you're trying to do something. It's like the dogs. Oh, infuriating. But they do, they seem to know. And I've already drunk half my drink, that's not going very well. Clearly I didn't drink enough liquid during the day. Wait for the ants to finish. It's amazing how long 3 minutes is when you're waiting for it. Feels like 10. Come on, ants. So, with any luck, you're all back now. I'm going to show you the 2 pictures they took of Rory and Amy the day they found them. Okay? There's one. There's little Amy. Look how small she is. And there's little Rory. Right? Tiny, tiny little beings. Right? I mean, they have got their eyes open, but probably not by much. There's another picture of Rory and Amy and their siblings. So yes, little tiny beings. They was very littles. So they were found really early on. I mean, I doubt they'd had their eyes open for very long when they were found. So part of you would like to think that, I mean, other than the rather tragic loss of their mother, no one knows what happened to Mum. But rather than tragic loss of Mum, they've been in animal care that is supposed to be good animal care all the time. So where he could have picked up some form of PTSD about his back end, I don't know. But he has. He has horrendous PTSD over that. To the point, I was talking to my manager in my one-to-one this week, and Rory was doing oh, I can't get up on the couch because I've decided to come up under the table and through all your cables rather than through the big ass gap that's, on the couch. So I went down and I put my hand underneath him to lift him, and he fucking growled at me, really kind of screw you with bells on. And it's like, it was me. I was helping you get on the couch. He meant it. He meant every inch of it. It's almost like, he's got a broken pelvis, but he hasn't. It's that kind of... It's kind of that kind of reaction. I'm masking a broken pelvis and didn't want to tell you, so now you've touched it, I'm telling you, don't touch that bit. It's that kind of animal behaviour. And so I really don't know what happened to him to make him that bad. But it is rather awkward. Because he is not a violent animal. But he is, kind of thing, when it comes to touching his butt. And now you can scratch his butt, but you can't kind of help him up on the couch. But you also can't wiggle your toes and touch his butt while he's asleep. So if he's lying by your feet and you move, Amy will get a face full of crap because you moved. And you're like, a little bit unfair on poor old Amy. So Amy does suffer for that. And I do feel sorry for her because, sometimes it's her fault. And sometimes I think she's frigging started it. It's not always him, is the short answer. It is definitely... there have been times it's definitely not always him. But at the same time, there are times when it has been. A couple of weeks ago, sitting on the couch, Amy was behind me, Rory was kind of in front of me, and he was trying to bite her through me. And it's like, wherever it wasn't my fault. Maybe she said your tail looked fat or whatever it is, who am I to know what was said. But, she doesn't need to lose her life for it, Whatever it was not that bad. But he can be very, very upset. But the rest of the time, he is the most placid, calm, gentle little soul until he loses his shit and then it's kind of bad, He has done it on the stream. We've been sitting here doing our thing and he'll be behind me and Amy will be snoozing the other end of the couch. And I've had to pin him to the couch by leaning backwards to stop him getting at her because he was going to take chunks out of her. And you're like, your head was, to the, obviously maybe she wagged her tail in her sleep or something, touched his butt, and he was off. And it's kind of like, I can't be dealing with that. There are times I can't be dealing with that. And especially at 3 o'clock in the morning. That is distinctly unpleasant because, I was asleep. I'm waiting up to a dog fight that I'm somehow in the middle of. But it's not consistent because there are many times that I've not deliberately, I don't do it to annoy him, but, I've managed to touch his butt and he's not reacted at all. And then there are other times when he's flinched like I hit him with a bulldozer. It's a strange little soul sometimes. But I do love them. I just wish that they would do the you know, like all pet owners, that sometimes I just don't need doggety assistance. Because their idea of helping usually isn't. And it's not for lack of trying. I do appreciate that they want to try and help, but it doesn't. You know, for example, replacing parts of PC does not need dog slob, you know? No, that's not right. Yes, it is. Just didn't look it for some reason. Right. And my computer will not work better because you've shed hair in it and slobbed on it. I mean, they're not particularly slobby dogs, but yeah. I mean, I also think that if you're doing commissions for someone, now bear in mind, I would only ever give, yeah. The other problem you can have is that maybe your intended victim for the delivery of said thing that you're making would not necessarily like cat stroke dog. Yeah, would not necessarily like cat stroke dog hair in their product. Now, I don't tend to make anything for sale, so I don't feel quite so obliged to worry about those kind of aspects. To be fair, the dogs are not too bad when it comes to weaving, because they don't tend to leap up on it. They'll get amongst your feet, and you know, but they don't tend to chew it. They did have a habit of nicking the cones, though, when they were younger. They were very good at nicking cones and chewing them, which was not very popular because they're a bit expensive for that. You know, when it comes to dog toys, there are cheaper things and better things for them to be chewing on. But they did. I got through a number of cones because they basically turned them into cat bath. I did manage to resurrect a couple, but the willpower was decidedly low after a while. These two, if for example I was knitting a jumper or a scarf or a blanket or crocheting one, or if I do things on my lap, so tatting counts, this isn't so bad because it's on a table and they're used to me doing computery things on a table, so they are a little bit more conditioned in that sense to not try and get on the table. But at the same time, the dog waggy tail that has a mind of its own that could clear, frankly, any surface. Yeah, I've never particularly had problems with that, but I think in some ways because I've always been doing it since the day they got here. So it's kind of something they know I do, and something that I will tell them off for if they try and get too involved with it. So I think, you know, precedents would manage to be set early on that one does not get on Mummy's keyboard. Similarly, you know, Mummy has a low patience tolerance for interrupting this. Yeah, cats are a little bit more stubborn in that. No worries. Yay, kitties. So, it is... I think dogs are better than cats for that. In that they don't tend to leap up on tables or lie on your laptop. They will lie on your laptop if you put it on the couch, because, well, it's on the couch, it's fair game. But if you have it on a table, they don't tend to do that. But what they do tend to do is wag their tail and make sure the drink goes over your laptop. We've had some near misses with that. We've had some very near misses with that. And of course, it's always the work laptop. Yeah, I can believe that. I wouldn't say the reverse is true, because obviously a dog is a very clingy, dependent person. And as a whole, it's not that they can't be independent, it really isn't. But they do tend to be oh, you're going for a piss, I must come too. I'm going for a piss. I've done this quite a few times. Do not need, dog help with that. But I come, I help, right? And I do think that if a man is a dog person, it doesn't necessarily imply that he wants a clingy, kind of dependent person. But at the same time, gonna sneeze in a second. I think I managed to mute that. Please tell me I managed to mute that. Otherwise, well, if you're picking up your speaker cones, I do apologise. Yeah, I think working dogs tend to be very independent, and they'll enjoy a good sit by a fire and interaction with human, but they're not exactly, lie on the couch with, cucumber on their eyeballs with a hot towel kind of thing, whereas the average couch surfing dog is. I'm looking at you because I know full well that if I got a hot towel and a comfy pillow and a blanket, and you'd be fucking up for that, dog. Yeah, you would. You wouldn't sit still long enough, miss. I can almost feel her going, shut up, I'm trying to sleep. You are now? Weren't a minute ago. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Need that one actually. So yeah, as I say, it's not that I don't love them, it's just that there are times. It's a bit like the want to go out, want to come in, want to go out, want to come in. Now my two don't ask, which is actually more annoying. No. Well, this is true. I mean, it has to be said. I as someone who lives alone, I do love having them around because I hold conversations with them. They are something that depends on me, so it requires me to get out of bed and do shit. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure there are days that I probably wouldn't. And I'd lie in bed and, almost lie there and crap myself because I can't be bothered to move, hopefully I'd not be that bad, but hey, given the chance, maybe I would, right? Because my mental health can be a bit crap from time to time, after all. So it is one of those kind of weird moments that having pets definitely is good for you, because you end up having a structure to your life. You have to buy them animal food. You can't just not feed them, because while you may choose not to eat anything and cook anything for you and, all of those kind of, poor mental health days, right? You feel bad if you do it to the animals. And in some, it sounds really bad, but they almost guilt you into being normal. And that can be a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I would say they kind of guilt you into doing some level of normalcy, which you can need. It's a bit like people who've suffered bereavement and who want to go to work. They want to work so they don't just sit around the house thinking about how miserable they are. And I think sometimes we can all relate to that, in that we need things to do that are going to distract us from our problems in a way, because all we'll do is sit and fester. And it's not something we can change. Now, if it's a problem where it's something you can fix, maybe you need the time to fix that. But if it's, things such as bereavement, you can't fix bereavement. It will happen. You will accept and adjust when you're damn well good and ready. And in a way, not a lot can change that. So, sitting around the house being miserable does not help that. But at the same time, maybe working is not also the right thing, depending on what your job is. And having pets around, having a pet that requires to go out, having a pet that needs care and attention, having something whose health you worry for. So, should your cat, dog, goldfish, whatever, feel ill, you take it down the vet, you take care of it, you prioritise its health, possibly over your own, but you take care of it, you keep an eye on it, you want it to have a good life. And so for it to have a good life, you try and meet all the criteria that you believe can give it the best life that it can have. And, sometimes even on a good day, you can feel a bit guilty because you don't think you spent enough time with your pet today. And I think in some ways that's one of the advantages of me of working from home. I am with them all the time. So they don't tend to feel, or they don't seem to feel usually, that they have to kind of cram in good time, because we're together a lot. And, they find solace for sure in being with me. I know this from when we go to bed, because they sleep where I want to sleep, because they want to sleep touching me, which means there's no room in the bed for me. Last night, I kid you not, I'll use the phone and a couple of these. So, I know this is my work phone, but go with it. If that was my bed, and this is the two halves of my bed, I normally sleep here, on this bit, leaving this bit for dogs. Now, I have a king-size bed. This is not an insurmountable amount of bed space. It's not like it's a single bed here. We are talking, I have a king-size bed. This should be sufficient for two 20-kilo dogs. Well, 20 to 25 kilo dogs, right? So, suppose lies here, like this, and it's not in a ball, it's like this. He lies like a little sausage here. She will then lie here as a little donut. This leaves me the edge part, and I am not skinny. Therefore, my butt cheeks kind of, are either dangling off or clinging on, depending on which direction I'm facing, to the bed. And of course the duvet cover only is, a hair wider than the duvet. Well, they're lying on it all. So I have kind of pulled the duvet over to one side, because, well, I'm not stupid, I want some duvet. So they move further over. But last night, literally, I had my head kind of here, with my body going down here like this. Rory was here, body here like this. She was here, and we were all under the duvet. So we all had our butts under the duvet, and we all went to sleep. And we stayed that way till about 5 o'clock this morning, when she decided to move, and he didn't. When I woke up, 12 o'clock, he was still there. Suppose had happily slept. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did only go to bed at about 2:30 last night, but by the way, this phone's out of batteries, so it's not like I'm hiding anything from you. Why is it out of batteries? Can't be to charge it. Probably should. But I'm not on call, so whatevs. It's not essential. It can wait. Speaking of which, it's patch day today, tomorrow, whatever. Later. So yeah, it is kind of one of those things, is that I love my pets, and, you know, they clearly find solace to, or they wouldn't sleep with me. They, you know, they wouldn't curl up and, you know, lie on my head, which is a Rory trait. Rory thinks he's a scarf, which I don't overly need. But he, you know, he happily adopts the scarf position. Sometimes. But of course, they're asleep now, because of course now they're asleep. If I lay down and kind of sprawled all over them like they would me, they'd be really put out. It's like I was saying, it's funny how if you walk around your house and you inadvertently tread on the very tips of the hairs of the end of the tail of the dog will leap up like you skinned it alive, yelping like its life depended on it. When it's just sunk its claws into your privates as a bloke, or your boobs as a girl, and you go, ow, it looks at you with that, oh, what the fuck are you moaning about? Shut up. Dog. Because they do have amazing accuracy. And for those who, of course, have, I mean, if you've had a Great Dane, I'm sure you'll know this. Dogs have this atom precision with their paws to stand on a painful bit. So I've got actual dents in my thighs from where the dogs stand. And it can be a bit painful because, well, you know, it's thin, squished the padding there, and so there isn't really the padding that there is elsewhere. And so you move said offending paw because it hurts. They put it back on the exact atoms that you just took it off. The atoms. It's a bit like if I tread on their paw. Okay, I'm a bit heavier than they are, but if I tread on their paw, yelp, yelp, yelp. Actually, these two don't do that, but that's not the point. If you tread on the average dog paw, yelp, 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 yelp. If they go claws into your, you know, ingrowing toenail, right, and you yelp, how dare you? You pansy. You know, it's kind of like, hang on. I didn't even touch you and you were screaming the house down. And yet when you stick your claws through my infected toe, you know, you think I'm being a wuss. I'm going to run out of... Well, I'm nearly out of Coke, let's truly be honest. There we go. Out of Coke. Right. I will go and get some more in a minute. Let's do you. 1, 2, 3. Good. 1, 2, 3. Just push you over that way a little bit more for a minute. A bit more space. So I apologise for not streaming yesterday. I was all set to go and stream, hence it was like, you know, I posted it would be a bit late, and then I fell asleep. And by the time I woke up, yeah. Which is why I was up late, because, well, I'd had a snooze and now I wasn't tired. And, yeah, my fault. So yes, I do apologise. But that's why you need to be on our Discord, because generally I manage to post what's going on. And it will tell you if I'm running late or not bothering or whatever. So I was just reading up on something. One of my co-workers, his wife got taken to hospital with meningitis, and I was just reading up on how you get meningitis, because I know that there are two types, and they've got a young son, and it was, my brain just kind of went, what about the kid? Because, well, if she's got it, she's almost certainly, if she's got the bacterial one, she almost certainly could have given it to the kid. So it basically says you can get it through 3 bacteria. How it's spread is through close contact with saliva or mucus. Well, let's face it, kids are so well known for the hygiene. Now, I don't know quite what she does for a living, but she does seem to work from home, so sometimes at least. So she's not like she's coming into contact then arguably with many other I do know what she does. Yeah, I do know what she does, sort of, vaguely. I know roughly. So she does work, I believe, in kind of a hospital environment, but she doesn't kind of do patients, I think. Anyway, so normally you get it through contact with the infected, and you know, well, yeah, this is what I was. It's either that he's either bought it as a carrier, or he's got it. He's just not kind of got enough of it to show symptoms, so he's carried it, but he's not. I mean, for example, I used to be Typhoid Mary for mono. Trying to think what we call it here now. Fuck's it called? Hang on. Glandular fever. I you know, if you went out with me, you got a dose of glandular fever. I didn't actively have it. I only had it once when I was 16, but I could give it to everybody. Needless to say, I didn't manage to pass it on to many, but that's not the point. I was very successful for the ones that I did, right? In fact, I gave it to everyone I went out with till I got married. And had, well, I was going out with Trev when I had chemo and stuff, and I think the chemo and stuff killed it. I think it lost the battle of the war. But I still occasionally have symptoms, which is like right now, I woke up this morning and all my glands were up, but that's all I ever get for it. Everybody else just catches it off me. So, you know, no snogging me at the Christmas pie. So maybe the kid kind of had brought it home. But the interesting kind of portions here is that it is saying that you can. I was reading the other one, which was better than this. It gave me 2 options, and now it's kind of picked one, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted the other one. Yeah, it's given me one of the answers, and not the one that I was reading, of course. Um, so, but then of course there's fungal meningitis. But again, that kind of almost is the, you live in slightly unsanitary and dodgy places, but you've still got to come in contact with something that has it. So if his wife has got it, obviously, it must be a big worry about the kid, because, don't want him getting it and all. Because that kid's quite young. I mean, you don't want to get anyone getting it, frankly, but, it's worse for the young and the old and all that. Yeah, it just suddenly dawned on me, if she's got that, because, on Friday, I think it was Thursday, he was talking to me, and he said, oh, the wife's at home with a headache. She's working from home, but she's asleep. Well, she's not working, douche. And that thought has kind of stayed with me, because we've had quite a few people we work with. Now, I'm not saying he takes that. I'm not. But we've had quite a few people in our, near our team, not necessarily in it, who have a similar kind of work ethic. In that, for example, in the past, we've had a team lead who, oh, I need to work from home on a Friday due to what, insert some bullshit, and he managed to wing it. And one of the team needed to get hold of him because he needed to get something authorised. Rang his phone, nothing's happening. Rang his phone. Eventually the wife answered, oh, well, he's gone off shopping. Supposed to be working. We had another one who had a holiday home far away. Not ridiculously far away in the country, but far away. Far enough that it took a 2 or 3 hour drive to get there, right? So let's say he was going to go there because it's a bank holiday. So bank holidays, for those who don't know, are generally Mondays. And so instead of setting off on Friday afternoon, because we all get Friday afternoon off, he'd go down Wednesday night. But in his own words, there's no internet or phone service there. Well, then you're not working Thursday and Friday, dear. But he didn't book those off. So we've had quite a few people take the piss. And, hearing that she's working from home but she's asleep kind of brought a slight flashback to that. And, kind of, oh, really? Working hard then? Right? And I didn't say anything because, none of my business. If her manager's happy with it, who am I to argue? But it did kind of, really? She's working from home but she's asleep? Mm-hmm. And I am really sad for, worried, I am genuinely concerned that, for him, because, his kid does seem a bit of a handful. Now, I know lots of kids are a bit of a handful, but this one does seem, well, let's put it this way. I think they've bought 3 or 4 new TVs now, because the kids wrecked them, to give you an idea. And it's not very old. So it's not teenager, pitching a fit and just smashing it. It's a little kid who, and it's kind of like, well, put it on the wall out of the way where it can't reach it. Oh no, we don't want it on the wall. I don't care if you want it on the wall. It sounds like you need it on the wall. Want doesn't come into it. See if that'll keep buying TVs. But, they've had to buy a few TVs. Because kids destroyed it, so he's clearly a little bit of a handful. And, my non-existent parenting technique would be, well, then you haven't quite enough if it hasn't learned that is an off-limit scenario. If you one break is a mistake. When you're on your third, that's a you problem, that one, If you haven't managed to stop it by then that's a you thing, right? But, I do worry for him because he is distracted enough at work sometimes. So, he doesn't need that on top of it. He really doesn't. Especially as his counterpart is off sick. Has been off sick. I think maybe coming back to work Monday, but depends on how well he's feeling, I guess. So yeah, my brain just kind of thought, well, hang on, how do you transfer meningitis? Because, well, surely if it's bacterial or whatever, there's a chance that they've all got it. I mean, let's face it, you don't have children without doing, adult things. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. And yes, I know you can doctor and all the rest of it, but I'm, pretty confident it's theirs, So therefore, chances are that I'm sure they're doing more of those kinds of things at some point. Therefore, chance of spreading it could be true. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Hang on, what? Oh, that's right, because I owed you one. That's why. Back in there, which means I owe you one. Yeah. Puts you back. So, one thing I need to do next is extract this out of there, make a bit of space, and go over here. And say we have now done definitely covered 4 inches now, so we can update that. Because yes, wifey has been hospitalised with meningitis, so it is quite serious. It's not, she's got a bit of headache. She's been hospitalised, so hoping that she's all right. I need me some more drink. I shall be right back. little puppy she is, she stood in the hallway to see, you know, obviously to check that I returned from the kitchen, but with one eye, you know, kind of with one ear poking upwards and the other one drooping over there. So it was a very distinctive look, wasn't it? Did you just burp in my face? Did you? Have you considered that that might be a bit rude? I don't burp in your face, I don't fart in your face, but you'll do that and all. You kept my spot warm, didn't you? Right, let's get back to doing some things. So I'm going to turn this like that a bit. Can we, not overly, is this short? Can we compromise? No, not really. Okay. I need to sit a bit more your way, Rory. I do. Okay, let's move it all that way a bit, and then that way a bit. There you go, that's a bit better. Right. On the table, there we go. Right. Where are we at? I feel in the mood for some music. I don't know about you. Now I know that you guys have some music, but it's boring and quiet. So I feel, because I don't listen to the music you're listening to. So let me bring up good old Amazon Music, and we will turn you on, turn you off. You should have lost some music about now. And then I click this one. With any luck you can hear that. So just lie down, animal. For those who were around about a month ago, may recall I showed some bobbins. While we were talking about it, we looked at these, which are hooded bobbins, where the windy bit goes underneath this and you handle this so you're not handling the thread. And I showed you some bobbins that look a little bit like lip sills, for want of a better word, and that you twist them and to release or take in the thread. And I've always... No worries. And, well, I ordered some. And I was kind of like, where the hell are they? So, if I look at the tracking, oh my god, it's finally arrived in our country. Right, pretty much the beginning of the month, it left Fremont, California, and 4 days later made it to San Jose, where it bounced around for a little and then went to Richmond. Then it went to Bell Gardens, wherever the fuck that is. A few days later it was in Los Angeles. Then it was packed. Oh no, they screened it and signed it back into Los Angeles. Then they received it at Whittier, wherever that is. And then they screened it again. And then they put it in a bag twice. One at 12:38 and one at 7 in the following morning. Then they finished processing it and scanned it into a sack. Oh, hang on, I thought you closed the bag 3 days ago. And finally, it has made it to customs, so I might actually get it this week. But pretty much, it's swum here, I think. I mean, I know America's a lot bigger than the UK, but taking like 3 weeks to move around one state feels a little slow. And slightly piss-taking when you've ordered it. So yes, One of you has farted because it was not me. I swear I was trying to have germs this morning. Hence my glands were up. Don't know where I'd have got them from mine, but there we go. And of course the ants back. pin can sod off because it's rusty at the bottom. So much for stainless steel, dudes. Oh. Summertime ends for us today. I didn't realise that. The world's been rather quiet about that recently. So that means our clocks go back at some point. So at 2 o'clock, I think it goes back to 1 o'clock. It's got half an hour then. Well, ish. Thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the Nut House. Hey! So I'm not going to be on a huge amount of time, but it's going to sound really weird because it's currently 1:24, but I'm going to stop at 1 o'clock because, as just discussed, apparently the clocks go back. Oh, no! I mean, I would ask what can be so majorly problematic about that. It's actually quite surprising how long a chicken does take to defrost. But then I will tell you the epic words. Right, I understand. I was expecting whole chicken. But one of the things that I said as a child, I'll be fine. It just will. To be honest, it's kind of the same stuff. I mean, yes, breast tastes slightly less chickeny than thighs do, but it won't matter a lot. Unless you were trying to make drumsticks, of course. You can't really do a drumstick with a breast. But anyway, one of the things... Well, it depends how you cook them, to be honest. One of the things that I said as a child, which I feel is epically poignant at the moment, if I was a sausage, I'd cook quicker. Think about that for a moment. I think it's because in my head, now bear with that thought, to an extent, I've always considered people getting suntans as kind of cooking them. Because, well, they go brown like they do when they're cooked, right? I think that's kind of where that came from, but if I was a sausage, I would cook quicker. Only a child can get away with saying dumb shit like that. I fucked up. mean, it could be worse. Definitely keep smelling something. I'm sure it's dog eminence. I want you to hazard a guess as to what I did. Or didn't do. Excuse me. Depends. Depends what is making you feel that that might be the right option. Why do you feel that way then, Mika Gets Me? And for those who did not guess, I've got to add the extra twists that one does with spiders. Fair enough. As long as it won't be too open with a bigger hook, go for it. No judging from this end, that's for sure. saw that. Sitting on my foot again. When I say I've been sitting on my foot, I'm not actually sitting on it, although I do that, where I tuck it under another leg and obviously the whole weight of my leg's on my foot and it goes to sleep. No, this is, I tuck them underneath the couch because my couch hasn't got a solid front. It's got like a front and then a gap underneath it. So I tuck them underneath and lean forward, and in the leaning forward it's cutting off the blood to my foot, and as a result of that my feet go to sleep, which is really irritating. Because, well, they go to sleep. And I know that you know this, but why is it that body parts don't kind of go, excuse me, brain, running out of blood, can I have a bit more please? No, they go to sleep quietly and then scream as they get blood back. such a shit about it? Thing where you should be. I see you're thinking about it again. Seems to be the night where all I'm doing is putting knots back on the top of the bloody bobbin. As you can tell, this is why I have no patience. Because if the knots did what they would, this would go so much quicker. Fuck's sake. Just stay on the thing. It's not like it hasn't got big enough lip on it. Been really annoying today. Wonder if it's because it's cold. And I do mean that genuinely. I wonder if it's because it's cold. 'Cause it's not exactly warm. Where are you supposed to be? There. must be because it's cold, because they're not normally this annoying. Take this off back here because we're not using it yet, and see how much we have a little bit. Find a mistake. Oh, we found another mistake, people. But looking at it, I don't entirely know. Oh, and another one, fuck's sake. I was on a fucking roll at the beginning of this. So let me scoot this forward and show you what I can see. Yeah. It's easier because if I then zoom and go up, well, with any luck you can already see them. So here, there's something wrong with this bit. Don't know quite what's wrong with it. I mean, it doesn't look wrong, but it doesn't look right either, because it looks different to all the friends. But then there's this one over here. She's just trying to pick it up. There it is. Which again looks wrong, but at the same time everything's twisted, so maybe it'll wash out. I don't know. But there isn't enough to roll around my magic thing yet. She says spotting another one. I really was on a roll, wasn't I? If you look, where was it? I saw it a minute ago. Here, there you go. This doesn't look right, because this outer thread and this inner thread should have twisted somewhere in the middle, so that it makes more of a cross rather than a this. So I'm doing really badly on this one. Almost to the point of, do you scrap it and start again? And the answer is no, but slightly annoyance. Why is it you try so hard to make it right, and yet you seem to fuck it up at every opportunity? Don't quite know how I do, because, well, as we all know, it's really not complicated, but I do think it is partly things like the bobbins coming undone distract you halfway through a stitch, and then if you don't pay a lot of attention, which clearly I don't, you screw up because you don't finish crossing it enough or whatever, and you end up making mistakes. I mean, the ones in the ground don't overly show. I mean, it's slightly misshapen, but it doesn't look so bad. That one shows a lot more, because obviously that string should go across. It should come down and continue on down here, but didn't and went back in. Sigh. Very big sigh. So now let's put this back where it was. Let us, because it is 5 to 2, or 5 to 1 as the phrase will soon be. Did you know British calendar changed in 1 year, and it was something like 1722 or 1822, I don't remember which, because obviously I was not around at the time. Before anyone says I'm old, bite me, alright? Why are you being so awkward about that? quick look. Looks alright. And it was in May. And they changed the colour in May. And some poor bugger died. And there was a gravestone in the church where my dad lived, where it showed like 21st stroke 22nd of May. And it's not because they didn't know when he died, it's because the calendar changed. So a bit like it is currently 5 to 2, but 5 to 2 will happen again today. So if, you know, it's almost that kind of thing, is the because he died on one day, the day it was say the 21st, and the day that, if you look back in history, it was the 22nd, or the other way around, you know, depending on whether they went forward or backward a day. But in essence, it was captured by this bloke dying and was on a gravestone outside the church, which I found interesting, because of course I didn't know that they'd changed the calendar like that. That's how I found out, because no one tells you. We know that we have the Gregorian calendar, so that implies that under King George we changed it, but who knew what? I mean, obviously October used to be the 8th month, not the 10th, because otherwise it wouldn't have been Oct, would it? So it is one of those weird things, is that so let's find out, when did they change it to, when and how did they change the calendar? Let's ask computer. Apparently it didn't all happen at once. Oh, so it was Pope Gregory, not King George, okay. So, in the 1500s, the Julian calendar created under Julius Caesar had drifted 10 days out of sync with the real solar year. This caused problems for calculating Christian holidays. So in 1582, Catholic countries immediately skipped 10 days. And so Thursday the 4th of October in 1582 was immediately followed by Friday the 15th of October 1582, and the missing days contained just. Other countries didn't do that. We did it in 1752, apparently. So we took a couple of 100 years to go around it. Fuck me, Greece only did it in 1923. So for us, this doesn't match up with what was on the gravestone. We did the 2nd of September 1782, followed by the 14th of September 1752. People joked that their days were stolen. The legal new year moved from the 25th of March to the 1st of January, so 1752 was also a shortened year. I'm sure that's not the only one, but I did ask you about the Gregorian calendar, to be fair. So, the Romans switched from the Roman calendar to the Julian calendar in 45 BC. Because Julian introduced the standard 365 day plus leap year. He was a bright boy to get that bit. We've covered that. Apparently the French tried decimal time and having 10-hour days. In 1880s, the universal time zones were established. Yeah. Many Muslim countries use the Gregorian calendar for civil life and the Islamic lunar calendar for religious ones. We know that. Saudi Arabia switched its civil payroll to Gregorian in 2016. Fuck, I was a bit late to the party, wasn't it? I know. I mean, seriously, damn! That's like last week. In comparison, isn't it? So there you go. Oh, dear God. So yes, technically it is going in 5 minutes. It will be 1 o'clock. Well, it has to be said, the calendar, of course, is a man-made thing. Everyone else goes by it's spring, shag time, it's winter, sleep time, you know. No one else particularly cares for the exact day of the year. As far as we know, because obviously we can't converse with many of the living beings upon this planet. I'm pretty sure, you know, again, plants only really care is it warm enough to do our thing or not? I don't think they overly care if you decide to call it January or February or whatever. So it, you know, from that point of view, it's just a man-made thing. Much like time is arguably a man-made thing. Everyone else just goes, it's dark, I'm not going out, screw it. You know, only we sit there going, it's 3:05 in the afternoon. Only we care to that extent. But at the same time, it is kind of interesting that, I mean, one of the things that is very noticeable is that if you listen to early parts of the Bible, not wishing to sound like a religious nut, but one of the things that they will tell you is that, you know, so-and-so was so many years old. But when they say he was so many years old, it's like hundreds of years old. And we all know that they had a lifespan of a gnat back then. So they weren't going to be hundreds of years old. They might have been hundreds of seasons old, because, well, there's 4 of them a year. But even then, when you're talking, I can't remember how old they reckon Moses, wasn't Moses, it was, thingy in the ark. Hang on. Noah, that's the chap. Yeah. Fuck off. I don't want notifications from my Kindle. Dear Lord, no. Pretty sure it was Noah who was like 50 billion years old. No, it doesn't need to lead Bluetooth devices either. I just want to search for years old. Yeah. No dude lasts a century, right? So, now it's not going to be days. Yeah, so it is going to be one of those things is, well then is it weeks? Weeks seem a little bit short to be counted as a year. But even if you do go that he lived a phenomenally old age, because of course, if you go back far enough, 20 was kind of the end of your zone. So, and of course we are talking the beginning of the world. So you'd kind of think, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are many holes one can pick in the early parts of the Bible. And there are lots of details that you feel that the plot wasn't entirely well thought out. Much as, for example, Adam and Eve in the garden. Eve eats the apple. They get thrown out of Eden. Should they go to the place where all the other people were? What other people? Where did these people come from? Because where did they come from? Anyway, and things like Noah and the flood. The days don't quite add up. Because there seems to be an awful lot of 40 days and 40 nights, but somehow in a week, whole trees grew and sprouted fruit, and blossom and shit, rather than were just little tiny weedlings, So, yeah. And of course, okay, so let's say Noah and his wife were on the boat because he took 2 of everything. Well, then surely we all descend from Noah and his wife, not Adam and Eve. Because, well, Noah and his wife were the only 2 humans, right? So there were a number of questions that I was a precocious child at Bible study, do not get me wrong. But, as you say, 950. It's hard to imagine what they counted as a year. Because it wasn't going to be days, because that would only make him 3.5. Might have been weeks, but it's not a lot better. I mean, what's 950 weeks in days? That makes him 18. If you took it as weeks. I mean, possibly. I mean, that's a little bit more feasible. But a week? Yeah, and I think this is where, an awful lot of it is that you sit there going, oh, if only I could read the original. Which is still a pretty... Yeah, you need a bit more gene pool than that, really. Otherwise, we should all have, 6 arms and 1 leg. I mean, at least the spouses, as long as they came from other families, they could at least have a population. But obviously, I mean, I can't remember how many sons and daughters that he had, but unless he had a good 100 plus, it's still quite a small gene pool. And it is kind of one of those things, is that I think there are always kind of those questions that you come up with, and it's like, well, how did they store all the food for, if you actually count up the number of 40 days that they bang on about, because it's not the same 40 days. Hang on. That's Moses, hang on. So let's go back to the beginning, right? Blah, 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 blah. Well, and this is part of the problem, is that it's not that you kind of don't want to believe it all, because maybe that, that is a thing. But at the same time, it's harder to believe when they kind of go, oh yeah, and some others, right? It kind of... Well, Adam was supposed to live for 930 years, you see. Anyway, and he'd live 130 years when he had a kid. There you go. Okay. So yes, Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? Blah blah blah. I'm trying to find when the rain happened. Hang on. Yeah. Right. So, God tells Noah that for 7 days I will send rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights. Okay. So, and every living thing that I've made I will blot out from the face of the ground. Okay. And Noah made the ark, and Noah was 600 years old when the flood and the waters came upon the earth. So yes, Noah and his sons and his wife and their sons and his sons' wives with him went onto the ark to escape the noise of clean animals and unclean, and everything that creeps was two male and 2 female. So, I mean, whichever version of the Bible. See, if it doesn't even agree, it kind of makes you laugh, doesn't it? So for 7 days the water and the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, and in the 2nd month of the 7th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens and angels opened. So, and rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Well, hang on, it was only for a minute ago. Okay. On the very same day, blah, 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 blah. And they took everything onto the ark, and they ran away, right? The flood continued for 40 days upon the earth. So is that the same 40 days as the rain, or a new set 40 days? The water increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. Blah, 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 blah. And the waters prevailed. Blah, 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 blah. And waters covered all the mountains, 15 cubits deep, and all the flesh died that moved upon the earth. Bird, livestock, beasts, and all swarming creatures that swarmed upon the earth, and everything on dry land, in whose nostrils the life breath died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, and man and animals, creeping and birds and things from the heaven. They were blotted from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed on the earth for 150 days. So is that on top of the 40 days and maybe other 40 days? Okay. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the rest of it, and God made the wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. So it's potentially 200 and something days, but maybe let's say 150 days so far, and now God has decided to let the rain go, the waters go down. And the heavens were closed, and the rain from the heavens was restrained, and the water receded from the earth. At the end of 150 days, so hopefully that's the same 150 days, the waters had gone. In the 7th month of the 7th, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, and the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, hang on, so a minute ago it was the 17th, at the end of 40 days, what was that, after the 150, before the 150, during the 150? I mean, how many days are we because if it stopped 40 days ago, well, it landed on something. He opened the window and sent forth a raven and told it to find, until the waters were dried up from the earth. He then said, and then he sent forth a dove to see if the waters subsided from the face of the ground. Well, surely that's what he sent the raven to do. You literally just said he opened a window, chucked a bird out, and sent it forth, and it went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided. Well, you've just been told that. How stupid are you people? She returned and for the waters were still on the face of the earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her to the ark. He waited another 7 days, and he sent the dove out again. And the dame came back, and behold, she had found an olive leaf. Well, that fucking grew quick, didn't it? Nearly the waters subsided. He waited another 7 days. So potentially we're talking 40, 150, 190, 108, no, 118 days I think it is by now. And then in the 601st year, In the first month, so it's nearly a year later, the first day of the month, the water had dried from the earth. Now remove the covering, and lo, looked at the ground. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Can you make your mind up as to the order of events here? It's getting real. This is worse than one of those films where they constantly flash back and forward and round, and you've lost track of who's who and when's when. And just no. I mean, this is the kind of crap that as a child you go, but miss, that doesn't make sense. You know, because it freaking doesn't. Not wishing to chastise my lovely religion's works of art there, but that one's a bit woolly on plot, I feel. Now, the general principle, big flood, you know, drowns the earth. You know, maybe we're overdue for another one. But, those, as I said, that olive tree grew real freaking quick if it was only 7 days. And how many days were exactly involved in that? Because, well, yeah. So it's a little bit... Well, there is that. But you see, this is the problem, is because we understand Earth to be the planet, that's not how you read it, is it? It is, and of course this is, you know, being a bit neurospicy and petulant child, you're sitting there going, but miss, and after all, surely the boat would have floated round quite a lot, so, you know, with no land to stop it, it could have sailed quite a bit. And I don't exactly know how much 15 cubits is in real terms, but that sounds bad, you know. So, it is now 1:15. So I am going to go to bed and get a decent night's sleep for a change. I will leave the video uploading and doing its thing as it should. But for all of you who are not in the UK and who have not yet done the adjustment of summertime, it will really screw up my timetable for you, because obviously I will now be on non-summertime time. So, I mean, in some ways it'll be easier for you because it means I'm an hour later than I would have been. Whereas for me, it'll feel like it's an hour earlier. But on that note, I shall hopefully be back tomorrow afternoon to do some more. Well, especially these days. I mean, for fuck's sake, dude. For the people like the Amish who don't... I hate it. I hate it because there's always clocks you don't change. There's always something that bites the dust if you do, and you miss something, you sleep, you feel out of sorts because I think if it drifted slowly, right, and I mean this quite sincerely, if instead of you went forward an hour or back an hour, if it drifted slowly, you wouldn't really notice. Much like the changing of the sunrise sunset times. Obviously it slowly, well, not that slowly, but it changes over time. So you suddenly realise that it's, say, only 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but now it's really dark. Whereas, a few weeks ago it was still light, and you notice that it's dark now. But if it came a bit more, if the time drift was a bit more like that, it wouldn't be so bad. It's the fact that, especially in spring, when it goes forward and you lose an hour's sleep, you're screwed. If you're over 30, you're kind of screwed for a week or so afterwards, sometimes longer. Because, well, it feels like you're getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and your brain's just like, just not up for that. In the winter, when you gain an hour, I mean, do not get me wrong, we all like an extra hour free in bed is great. For those who are on night shift right now, you poor suckers, as you've got to work an extra hour. But it is that kind of frustration, is that I get for people like the Amish who are not, highly electrical and, so need, torches and stuff to work in the dark. I appreciate for people like them that it is still a struggle, the whole dark and farming, and because that's originally where it came from, is purely for farming. However, farmers get up in the dark an awful lot and go to bed in the dark an awful lot. Moving time doesn't really save them from that, because for months, for a good month plus now, they've been getting up in the dark and going to bed in the dark. So it doesn't really help. It's too late. You'd have to do it much earlier for it to make a lot of difference. And, now it's, freezing over and half the farms are almost boiling down to securing animals for the winter. They're not really, harvesting the ground and I mean, they're still going to milk cows and shit, but, they're not kind of full-on plant growing, harvesting, tending kind of thing that they would be during the warmer months. So it just, as you say, it's just about to annoy everybody, I swear. And, but, they have done talks about not doing it. And, for 99.9% of the world, we don't need it anymore. It doesn't help. If you really want to do it properly, move, in the spring, bounce forward half an hour, take an average, bang, there you go. Stay at that for the rest of the year. Forever. Because that way you're halfway in, halfway out, somewhere in the middle. So instead of being 1:19, it'd be 10 to 1. But you're not. You're somewhere in the middle. Just do it. Please, for the love of God, stop moving time. It plays havocs with computers and auditing and all sorts of other stuff. Because, if you look at a device, and again, I've used this example at work quite a lot of times. if you make a car part, let's say you're making an engine, and it's for lorry or something, it's for a lorry. If you make that and then something about that engine fails and it causes a hideous accident, and they ask for details of your building of the engine. Well, if you built it during the time breach, right? If you finished building it and stamped the system at, say, 1:55 a.m, I come along and 10 minutes later I give it a once over, it takes me half an hour, I then have checked it. But it's not 20 past 2 now. It's 20 past 1. I've now checked it half an hour before you made it. Well, you can't check it before it's finished. So now you look stupid unless you remember that that was the day of the year that the clocks went back. Now, chances are that would be remembered, but it's that kind of aspect that we're always told it was for farmers. But I can also believe that. I can believe it was to make the work days longer. Because no one... that makes it even more laughable. So yeah, basically fuck it all then. Yep, thank you for educating me. I didn't realise that. I was always told it was because of the farmers. So I believed it because, of course, I was a child when I was told it. And I've never... And I think it's one of those things is someone tells you in a very convincing manner that such and such is true. So you go, yes. And then you go off with it. You don't go and look it up because you've already been told why it happened. And I've never looked at it. But it does apparently say it got invented a couple of times. So, something else to read about, I guess. Anyway, as you say, it is time for bed, being 1:30, so, or nearly 1:30. Thank you for joining me on my adventures today. I shall be back in, because my clock on the wall hasn't updated, and that's how I do my things, so I'm going to say, 12.5 hours-ish. Maybe, something like that. Somewhere around there, anyway, hopefully. Unless, of course, I fall asleep. But that's the intention. But, of course, they are subject to adjustments. They are not... I don't do hard and fast starts, as we all know. I try, but I never succeed. So, I shall hopefully see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. And let me quickly look, see if there's anybody interesting streaming to pass you to. See who's on and see if they're doing anything good. Oxford's playing Vintage Story. You're playing Dragon Quest. God. Everyone's playing games, so I'm not going to thrust them upon you because games are very much personal choice. So I shall leave you to go and find alternative arrangements, such as also going to bed, perhaps, or eating dinner. Or whatever else takes your fancy. But I shall hopefully see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.